It has been a glorious 2 days. I have gotten 2 rounds of leftist coping, seething, and maulding about the Supreme Court making constitutionally accurate decisions in all of a 24-hour period, and it has been wonderful to me. First, we must begin with the Supreme Court torpedoing gun control, which led to the leftists whinging and whining and complaining about how the Supreme Court wasn't reading the room. And the second time with the Supreme Court overruling Roe v. Wade, something that had been coming in the offhand ever since 1992 with Casey, because remember, that was supposed to be the case that overturned Roe v. Wade, but ended up turning into the absolute mess that we now have today. And, well, it has finally happened. Finally, after literal decades of Republicans giving promises about overturning this blatantly unconstitutional decision, it has finally happened, and it couldn't have happened in any more perfect of a way. First, by having the entire opinion in the draft form be leaked to the public months in advance, something which has literally never happened for any Supreme Court decision ever, only to later find out that the entire thing was actually accurate, and that the ending decision just adds on a bit more ridicule of the opposition position, and everything in this case has just been glorious. It really does justify me watching the entire oral arguments for this case, despite the fact that it was an awful, terrifying, and frankly, just kind of boring experience at the time. And oh boy, have I been enjoying the leftist response to this particular debate. Now, the first thing to mention about every single response from the pro-abortion, pro-baby murder crowd with regard to this particular decision is that none of them make a single legal argument. They don't even try at this point. Simply what they are saying is something to the effect of, we're going backwards in time now, as if that should matter when you're discussing constitutional issues, or you're removing women's rights to murder babies, okay? Or you're a hypocrite for supporting one thing and not supporting another thing, which are all actually arguments said verboten from leftists that I have seen today. Now, it is not exactly surprising that leftists have been completely mauling over this particular decision, and of course they are now planning mostly peaceful violence over the Supreme Court decision, which is probably going to end up intensifying over the next couple of days, though I'm not really expecting it to go all summer. Hey, we'll see, and if it goes all summer, I guess I'll just have to enjoy it. But that is where they are at. They are simply completely in shambles, and through all their attempts to muster a defense, muster something where they can actually create a coherent argument for abortion, they have been forgetting one thing. Oh, right! We've gone through 50 years of progress since then. So, of course, defending abortion on the original terminology that it was originally justified upon is now considered to be right-wing propaganda transphobia. And so, of course, on Twitter, there has been a particular hashtag of AFAB. No, it doesn't mean all feds are bastards, as much as I wish that was the case. Instead, what it means is assigned female at birth, because remember, men can get pregnant too. And so what we have is the leftists who have been attempting to claim that if you overturn Roe v. Wade, and this is something that has, of course, been parroted by many people in the centrist loser wing of the so-called Big Tent right-wing party, or Big Tent right-wing movement, that if you overturn Roe v. Wade, then everything will fall apart. You will lose every election from here to Sunday. But in reality, that is not how that's going to end up working out. Because in order to actually to muster a defense and actually get up the votes to stop the impending red tsunami coming November, you'd actually have to have a coherent point and a coherent position from which to defend. And of course, you've already cut that out from beneath you. And so you cannot do that anymore. But that's not the only reason they won't get what they want in this case, because something that needs to be said and has not been said anywhere near enough is the fact that the Supreme Court is a rubber stamping organization for political opinions. All right, look at how the left has been using the Supreme Court for literally decades at this point. And here's a recent example, Obergefell. We go from California voting down same-sex marriage in something like 2012 to just a couple of years later, the idea of being against same-sex marriage or even believing that maybe doing something that is want to give you many very lethal diseases is at least inadvisable is now a verboten opinion. And that was something that changed over just a couple of years. A similar thing also happened with abortion, because remember, the modern abortion movement comes out of the remains of the early eugenics movement, where, of course, it got completely railroaded and sidelined once it turns out that, well, all of their ideas were caught by, Hitler and turned into the Holocaust. But, of course, the eugenics movement soldiered onwards, killing black babies, and later, into the 70s, it's still somewhat of a niche issue. It's still something that's off on the sidelines of American politics, where most people really don't believe in it. It's come to 1973, though, and the bringing down of Roe v. Wade and the years which follow, and suddenly, by the time you get to the 1990s, being anti-abortion is also basically verboten, where a lot of the country at least ostensibly believes in pro-choice, and the safe, legal, and rare shtick from Hillary Clinton, because there's so many I'm with her supporters around, even to this day, mind you. And then, fast forward a couple more decades, the Supreme Court completely overturns Roe v. Wade, finally, after such a long time. And, well, what do you think is going to happen now? Well, maybe there's been such an influx of leftist positioning that everyone has completely changed their position on baby murder and the morality of such. But I don't suspect that will actually be the case. Instead, I think that this is simply a reopening of the Overton window to actually pro-life and anti-baby murder positions. And so, I think this is actually going to go quite well for the Republicans come November. Of course, assuming they don't grab defeat from the jaws of victory like they have been, such as when they voted for a gun control bill within 24 hours of a pro-gun Supreme Court decision, making it the most mixed signaling election cycle ever. But of course, something to point out there is that all of those people were rhinos and should all be voted out come November or whatever else they're going to be up for election, because of course the senators, they have 6-year cycles and whatnot. I'm certainly going to be keeping my eye on those sorts of things as well, which has been helpful considering that Project Veritas has been putting out exposés on certain rhino politicians in my own home state of Utah, where of course there are going to be primaries in just a couple of days, along with lots of primaries going on in the rest of the union. And if you have a primary coming up, research the candidates, make sure that you know that some of them aren't rhinos, and if there are rhinos, vote them out. Do not vote for them. Make sure that they go away. Go on the rhino hunt. That's what we need to see, and that's what you need to do. And if you don't do that, well, you're just a black-pilled bedwetter, and those guys are losers, because they're the exact sorts of people who said that this day could never come. Remember, black pills are self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe them, they will come true. And if you don't believe them, well, maybe you'll have a chance to actually change things and take down, at least a little bit, the ratcheting system that has been going on throughout the entirety of American institutions. Now, of course, that hasn't fully gone through. The Supreme Court, as a ratchet institution for the left, has not fallen, but it has begun to fall, and we have begun to see cracks within leftism. And starting from the bottom, from a position that they can no longer even defend, is a quite clever thing to do, even if it was done basically by happenstance. they can't defend abortion anymore because they have no coherent positions from which to do so. They've undefined so many terms, they can't do anything at all. And if you keep attacking them where they've already gotten their progress through, well, eventually it's all going to come crumbling back down to earth, because that's how all of this will inevitably work. What comes up has to come down eventually. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys off. If you enjoyed that video, do subscribe down below and check me out on other platforms. I'm on BitChute, I'm on Brighteon, I'm on Rumble, I'm on all of those places. I'm on Minds, I'm on Getter, I'm on Gab. All of those links are down in the description. I suggest you go check them out. I'm also on Odyssey and all those sorts of places. I'm KelKidman. This has been Breaking on the Daily. Don't be square.